Now on ITV1, he's joined by Madness frontman Suggs as he wakes up your taste buds. It's James Martin's Saturday Morning.
Welcome back. Now, the very talented Daniel Galmiche is going to be cooking for us a little bit later, and forager Alicia Vasey will be dropping by the house very shortly. But first, it's an honour, and a true honour, and I mean that, to be here with a man who fronted one of the country's most iconic bands, and they've churned out hit after hit after hit over the last 4 decades. I remember because I've been listening to it for as long as that. It's the brilliant Suggs! Welcome to the house. Welcome to the house. Good to see you. We've never seen so many people in here. Half the people I don't even know as well. And all this for a fried breakfast and you. Because I was reading all your favourite sort of foods as well like that, and I thought, I've got to pick this one. I've got to do a fancy version of a fried... Well, it's not really a fancy. It's a fried breakfast with a waffle. That's all right?
Full English, yeah, I'm sorry, but that is still one of my favourite meals, yeah. I mean... Not every day of the week, but, you know.
But every now and then.
I'm seeing some interesting stuff going down here, James.
Well, we've got sausages, we've got sausages, mushrooms. It's the same thing, apart from the fact that we're going to do these bacon and potato waffles. So rather than hash browns, we're going to do waffles with it as well. And a little bit of flavoured butter. That's about it, really. But the sausages going in the pan. We've got the tomatoes on in here. I'm going to cook it with mushrooms and some nice little butter as well. So first of all, where do we start? I'll tell you where we start. We start with what right now is, it's got to be massive congratulations because... Your album, this is the album, what, 13th album?
Yes, indeed.
This is actually lucky 13.
Lucky for some, yeah.
This is number one, your first number one album.
Yes, very strangely. I mean,
which deserves a round of applause, to be honest. Not just for 13 albums, but the first number one album.
All these strangers that followed me out of the pub are all applauding. That's nice. Yeah. But, yeah, no, we had to check ourselves on the internet, and it apparently is the first number one. We had a lot of number 2s and 3s and all that. But they were in the days of Blondie and the Pretenders and people that and ABBA and Michael Jackson were much bigger than us. So finally, we got a little bit of space. But it's funny, I was talking to you earlier without sort of dominating the whole conversation. You was talking about reading that we had market stalls in Camden Town when we were kids. And I must say, in fairness to BMG, our record company, we were determined to push this. Taylor Swift was right up our backside. Drake was coming round the corner. He said, we just need to flog a few more albums. Yeah. So they set us up a stall in Camden Town. And I'm standing there flogging albums thinking, now, this is life in full circle. That's 40 years ago when we was flogging albums.
Well, I mean, Camden's... I mean, close to you as well, close to your heart, Camden, and the whole... Back then... We're talking back then, 40-odd years ago. The Cocoa Club's still around there, isn't it?
Yeah.
It wasn't it called... Was it the Camden...
Well, it changed names a load of times, yeah. It was the Camden Palace, then the Music Machine. But when we were kids, there were probably 12 or 14 different venues that you could get gigs in those days. So you could go out and see a band every night. I mean, it was tremendous.
And there was bands like, you know, the Who, the Stones...
Everyone you can think of, yeah. I mean, a friend of mine had a meeting with, I think it was Liz Truss or something, when she was the head of... entertainment, and he went, where do you think these bands started? She had all the gold discs of, like, Coldplay and, you know, they all started in the pubs of Camden Town, like everybody did in those days.
Well, I remember Coldplay launched one of their albums, XY, I think they did it in Camden Town. It's just this small, well, it's 1,500-seater, but iconic venue as well. But that whole ethos back then, your band, you weren't part of the original lineup, were you? There was three.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, there was a band called the North London Invaders, and I kind of knew them as friends. But the singer that they had wasn't very good, and they asked me. I'd never sung in my life before, but I was coming out of a cinema singing. I've been to see that film American Graffiti, you know, and I was singing Rock Around the Clock or something. And they said, do you fancy trying out? And so I got the job as singer, much to the amazement of everyone, including me.
So what were you doing what were you doing for a living?
Well, funny enough, I was working in a butcher's at that time, of all the things.
Yeah.
But I knew that wasn't going to be a career. I mean, you know that apprenticeship business, which you know very well.
Yeah.
Butchers had a whole hierarchy, you know, the master butcher,
It takes ages to get there, all the way.
And I was right at the bottom. But then the band started to take off quite quickly, yeah.
Well, it does take off quite quickly because you were doing gigs and you know, not hand to mouth, but, you know, 11 quid a week and that kind of stuff. And then it suddenly... What was the catalyst that suddenly went boom?
Well, there were two things. One was that there was a kind of scene, the two-tone scene, which was a special selector And we were kind of involved in that a little bit. We had a single that got to number 16 in the charts. And then Stiff Records, who had Ian Dury, Elvis Costello, a lot of the people that we liked at the time signed us up. And our next couple of singles just hit the charts really in quick succession. The apocryphal story is that I suddenly got £30,000, and I was saying, I don't know what to do with £30,000, honestly. From £11 a week to £30,000. And I was trying to give some of it back, but I certainly wouldn't do that anymore.
But
Thank you. Thank you very much.
But going back before the band and everything else, your childhood, your mum,
yeah,
she was huge. You were a singer.
Yeah.
That's obviously where you got your inspiration.
Well, I had no intention to be a singer, but yeah, she was a jazz singer around the clubs of Soho. But like a lot of my friends who had parents who were musicians or singers, it was all terribly embarrassing because you go in the pub and if there was a piano, you think, oh no, here we go. We're not getting out of here for about 6 hours. But she was a very good singer. Yeah, she never really made it in any great consequence. But I suppose it must have rubbed off in some way when you look at the history of what happened to me.
But I'm going just after your childhood as well, because that was you didn't have the easiest of childhoods, let's be fair. And then you had to graft for everything. And I think that's the same thing with your band, really, because you've done the groundwork, and that was notoriously tough. Because a lot of things, music industry is different, as we know now. I mean, you've seen it over decades. It's very different
for sure. I mean, I got thrown out of the band briefly because I wasn't taking it seriously enough. I was going to the football on Saturdays when that was the main day of rehearsal. And then eventually one of the bands saw me on Match of the Day like that, and I've been talking about going to my auntie's funeral for the 4th week running, and I obviously was not. So I got thrown out of the band, and then I remember going to see him at a school in Camden, and all the girls were down at the front, like a scene from American Graffiti, and I thought, I should be up there, not down here. And that really was the turning point, and I thought, no, you're right, now to start taking things seriously, yeah. And so we started rehearsing 4 or 5 times a week. And we started to make progress, yeah. I mean, everybody was talking about having a band. Everyone had a broken saxophone or a guitar, and they're all going about with their, berets and, books in their pocket,
But your image as well, your image was unique for that sort of time as well.
Yeah, well, we kind of, you kind of had punk, which was a lot of energy, but that was all sort of about tearing your clothes up and looking like you just come out of a hedge. And we just got into suits that you could get from second-hand shops in Camden Town and created our own kind of little scene. And then the Specials came along, who were doing something very similar, which was that ska and reggae stuff, which was how we started.
So we've got to talk about this album now, because this is album number 13. Tell us about this, because this has been, 7 years?
Yes,
and you were actually going to, in the middle of sort of the pandemic, you were actually going to split up,
Yeah. I mean, like everybody, we were having a very hard time, emotionally and, spiritually, politically. And then we started talking, and then it's always the same. When we get in a room together, making music is always the greatest healer. And you realise, there's more that keeps us together than divides us, really, even though we want to kill each other most of the time.
But isn't that's the same with successful bands like yourselves? Because you look at Fleetwood Mac, you've got to have that
adultery and,
So do you have people in the band? Do you have, you're going to do the lyrics of this and you're going to do this? I guess there's not that. You all just... It seems to me like you all just meet up in a room and stuff happens. Is that right?
Well, everybody writes, which is unusual. I mean, our keyboard player Mike said he felt sorry for the Beatles and the Stones because there's only 2 writers. There were 6 of us, but not quite as good as them 2. But no, everybody writes and in different measures. Sometimes someone will have words, someone will have a tune, But I remember when we started rehearsing this album, thinking, God, blimey, are you sure this is any good? But bit by bit, it evolves, and everyone adds their parts, and given the players that we have, our saxophone player, Lee, Mike, our keyboard, we've got very individual players, and it starts to sound like madness eventually.
It does start to sound like madness, because even after 40 years, you're about to witness this. Just have a listen to this.
Cheeks and a pair of wings. Is this what
gave him, he'll hear the angels sing. On high for all to praise him. God's gift, and no one wants to know him. She'll sing a lullaby and life will show him. The sun comes up and the sun goes down. The wheels come off and the deals go down. The news comes out and a star is found. We play the game and go round and round.
Thank you very much. Never lost it, never in any doubt, was it really? So, look, we just got in here. That's brilliant. You're going to stick around for the rest of the morning. We're going to talk more about the tour, which we're going to touch on a little bit later as well, because you're out back on the road.
Yes, so just never stops, you know. I mean, our saxophone players keep saying, when can we retire? But people keep buying the tickets. So not complaining at all. No, the live stuff. We've got a load of festivals coming up this summer, yeah, which maybe we
Because you notoriously turned around when you were younger and turned around and said, I'm not playing those... do you remember that?
We're not playing the big venues.
Yeah, you're not playing the big venues. You're not playing that sort of music again. Once we've done that hit, we're not playing it again.
No, that's right.
You must think, yeah.
Well, no, that's right. I remember when I was 20-odd saying there's no way I'll still be playing that baggy trousers when I'm an old man of 30. Anyway, those days are long gone, as we all know. That's looking good, James, mate. Yeah, it's the timing, innit, on a fry-up.
Well, there we go. We're nearly there with our fry-up. We've got this. I've got my little bit of maple butter that I've got in here, fried egg, and we just take our maple butter, pour that in there.
So you're getting into music now, I'm led to believe.
I'm not
told me.
By any way.
Well, I saw the 400 guitars in your man cave, so you're obviously doing something, mate.
Well, I make a noise. That's what I like. But I like doing it, and yeah. I get a sort of a buzz like you get. I mean, you just get.
Well, music always does, yeah, regardless of what level you're at, you know.
And do you know what? When I knew you were coming on, I was trying to remember. I remember me and my mates sort of banging into each other and everybody else in the pub when your music came on. And now you're at my house, and now I'm cooking a fry-up. How surreal is life? And there you have it, a fry-up for Suggs, nice and easy, with a nice little potato and bacon waffle. Done. Yeah. Easy as that. Right, there we have it.
Thank you very much, mate.
Not a bad starter, is it, really?
Do you know what I'm saying?
Well,
it's the waffle I'm really intrigued by, yes.
It's just...
Not just a load of old waffle, you know.
Yeah. Well...
Mmm. Love it. And that's maple butter, yeah.
Maple butter with the bacon.
Mmm. American style, isn't it? A pancake waffly business, yeah, lovely.
You can't beat a fried breakfast, though.
You can't beat... You can't.
Can I just say, I've been doing the show, but... as long as you've been making music. I think that's the first breakfast I've ever made on national TV.
Well, you know you've ruined today's show because everyone out there is just running out the door round to the local shop to get some extra bacon. You know that, mate.
That's a point as well, yeah, exactly. Right, there we go. I'll be making a classic coq au vin for Suggs later on in the show. We've got more classic French cooking on the way from Daniel Galmiche. That's coming up very shortly. But join us again after the break when we've got Indian cooking on the menu with Cyrus Toddywaller. He'll be giving the humble shepherd's pie an Indian makeover. I'll see you after the break. These are amazing. Welcome back. Now we're treating singer Suggs to a coq au vin very shortly, and chef Daniel Galmiche will be taking over the kitchen duties. That's coming up next. But first, it's time for this week's masterclass. And this week, I thought I'd take a look at one of the greatest fish you'll find in the seas around this country, and that's the humble haddock. And it is absolutely spectacular, this fish. And there's so many things you can do with it. And two of my favourite things of what I've got in front of us over here. Firstly, the Arbroath Smoky. These come from Arbroath, not to be confused with the Finnan haddock, which is very similar. It's smoked fish with the Finnan haddock, slightly bigger, but what they do with the Finnan haddock is they coal smoke it. This is hot smoked, and this is absolutely beautiful. It's got a PGI status, which means that it has to come from that area as well. our broth. It's absolutely amazing. The lucky people of Scotland will know this because it's absolutely delicious. One of my favourite ingredients in the world, this. And what we do is we just, to warm this up, because you can buy these online, you can just take some newspaper, like that, over like that, wrap it all up, sit it on a tray, and sit it in the oven. Done. And that's just going to get warmed up. It's as simple as that, really. You can then turn this into, you can do omelettes and omelette Al Bennett, which I've done on the show, which is amazing as well. And another one with the smoked haddock. So I'm going to get on with the fresh haddock in a minute as well. The smoked haddock, which I want to get on here. So I'm going to poach this smoked haddock, because every time I do this, it reminds me of two things. It reminds me of my granddad, because that was the only thing he was allowed to cook in the kitchen, that and his new potatoes from the garden. Poached haddock with a little bit of milk, but also the late, great, the genius, Mr. Gary Rose. And one of his most famous dishes, as well as bread and butter pudding, used to be this dish. And it is just spectacular. It really, really is. So this is naturally smoked haddock. This is smoked haddock that's been smoked using a smoker. You can do that. You can smell it. It smells amazing. All we're going to do with that is we're just going to poach this in a little bit of the milk. So you're just going to sit that in the milk in there. Now, with this, we're going to turn this into a rare bit on the top. And the rare bit on the top uses some cheese. So we use some cheddar cheese. That's going to go in here. Now, you can use the poaching liquor from the fish as well if you want, but a little bit of milk. And then I've got some Henderson's. That's going to go in there. A touch of Tabasco. That's going to go in there. And then we've got some mustard. Now, English mustard for this one. So I'm just going to use some English mustard. You can use the powder if you want, but just a nice little bit of English mustard. Good dollop of that. It's hot and spicy, is English mustard, so just be careful with it. And then using a spatula, we're then just going to melt this all together. Now, the most important bit with this, we don't want to boil it. If we boil it, it separates the fat from the cheese. So when you're doing this, just melt it gradually. That's what we want. Now, while that's happening, and we've got the fish cooking away nicely, and this just melting away nicely, I can talk to you about the main haddock as well. And the majority of haddock, this, comes from sort of the northeast of the UK, caught around the northeast, all the way up to sort of Norway, around as the Russian border, that sort of area there. And the other part of it, it's only two areas, really. The other bit is Canada. But it's a fantastic, fantastic fish. It's kind of like the cousin to cod. But with this, it's the other cousins in the group. You've got whiting, curly, a little bit of hake. The key to this, really, when you get it really, really fresh, and that's important with all fish, of course, but when you get it really, really fresh, sometimes it can be quite pappy, as in quite soft. So what you want to do with that, and I get in the habit of this really when I'm cooking this simply with fish like this, particularly from that side of the family, not necessarily with cod, but from this, is you slightly salt it. So you just take the fish, sprinkle it with a little salt. I'll just show you, just on this bit. So you just take some table salt or some sea salt, just over the top, and you just leave that sat there, and it just firms up the flesh on the fish. So when you cook it, it doesn't break up. Now, I've got one here, and I can actually feel it sort of firmed up a little bit, and you can just take your nice little bit of fish like that. Now, if you want to season it, another way of doing it is take a little bit of black pepper and do it on the underside, skin side. I always like to leave the skin on, really. It just holds the fish nicely together. And we just take that and pop it straight in the oven. That's going to cook nicely in there, only for about 3 or 4 minutes. Meanwhile, over here, we can then turn our attention to our nice little bit of rare bit. So if I pop that over the top of a piece of fish, it's basically just going to fall off. So to hold it all together, we take a bit of flour. Now, make sure it's nicely melted like that. You just take a touch of flour, not too much, and we just mix that together. Now, keep the pan on the heat, and it'll actually start to thicken up. There we go, it's starting to come together now, a little bit. And that, maybe a little bit more flour, not much more than that, that's all you need. And mix this all together. Then what you want to do is you want to allow this to cool slightly. Then I add an egg yolk, or a couple of egg yolks, something like that, in there, and then let it set on a tray. And if you let it set on a tray, it goes into that. You can put it in a bowl if you wanted to, because what this ends up doing is it's a bit like sort of pastry. You can actually end up moulding it. And it's brilliant over fish like this, but it's absolutely delicious, this. It really, really is. And to simply cook it, we're just going to take our tray again, a little bit of butter over the top. You've got a lovely bit of fish, which is just cooked. Now, the reason why I don't fully cook it, you can see that, is that it's going to go under the grill and cook even more. So I'm not going to thoroughly cook it. This milk is brilliant, by the way. Keep this, because it's brilliant for omelettes and things like that. It's fantastic. Take your nice little bit of cheese. And look at that. This gives you like the ultimate cheese on toast if you wanted to. You can take this recipe and you can then put it onto a little bit of bread with a bit of chutney, which is delicious. And all we want to do is just cut this. And then you sort of you can put that bit on there. Sits on the top of there nicely. Another one. And that sits on there nicely as well. So don't forget, it's going to melt anyway, so it's going to cover it all up. But this is brilliant. It lasts in the fridge for a good 4 or 5 days. So once you've made it, you can do so many different things with it. Like I said, for breakfast, on a little bit of bacon and some chutney and some bread, it's ace. Pop it under the grill. And that's going to sit on the grill for a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, I'm just going to check our fish, which is happening. And then I'm going to do a little garnish for this. So this is nice and quick. So we're going to do these really simple. We've got a list here on the show as well. We've got samphire you can get. You can get this from the supermarket nowadays. I'm going to make a lovely little, simple little sauce. Very quick, very simple. We take some shallots. I've got some mussels over here, some clams. I've got some tomatoes. And we're going to make a really simple little garnish to go with our nice little bit of haddock. Tomatoes, like that. I've taken the skins off the tomatoes, but nice and quickly, we're going to bring all this lot together. So a hot pan on the stove, a little bit of butter, like that, into the pan. In we go with our tomatoes and our onions. That's going to go in there. In we go with our clams and our mussels. These have just been cleaned. They're going to go in. Bit of white wine. Get the pan nice and hot. There we go. Touch of cream. A little bit of that. Some samphire. So this is beautiful, nice and salty. So you just want a nice amount of that in there. It's just a really simple little garnish to go with haddock. Touch of black pepper. Pop the lid on. That's going to be about a minute. So the dish for the smoked haddock, the rare bit, which is looking really good. We take our tomatoes like this. So these are the ones that have been skinned, and you just slice this all up. Now, if you wanted to, you can serve this with a dollop of chutney. It's entirely up to you, but just sliced tomatoes like this on the plate, ready for our rare bit. Really simple. As I say, whenever we're doing this sort of dish, it just reminds me of the great man, Mr. Guy Rhodes, because it is just fantastic, is this. It really is. I had the fortunate experience of eating this at his restaurant when he was still alive. It's just magical. So salt and pepper over the top. Grab yourself a little bowl. The dressing for it is just chives and olive oil. That's it. So take some fresh chives. And then it's looking really good. Fresh chives in there. Proper olive oil. I can switch that off now because that's done. Touch of that. And then you just spoon the olive oil and the chives over the top. And then the fish, I can tell, is ready. You just take this straight out of the grill. Look at that. It's a dish that makes me smile because it's got so much history with this as well. But look at that. This on the top. It really is a classic. If there's any chefs watching this of a certain age in a certain era, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when you're watching this. Because it's just classic. This one over here, we're going to lift this out. That's your nice little dish finished. Haddock's perfect. We can then lift this off. This is just simple little sauce. You've got the mussels, the samphire. I mean, look how easy that is. It's so versatile, this haddock. You know, so often we think of this as just as fish and chips. Then whenever you go up north, when you ask for one of each and a bag of scraps, one of each meaning fish and chips, it will always, always be haddock, never cod. And we just lift it off like that. So we can then lift off our nice little bit of haddock over the top. Sits there with it. Beautiful bit of fish that, slightly salted because it firms up the texture nicely. And then finally, because we can, and we've got one more dish, and we've got time, about 15 seconds, I believe, is you've got our arbroath smoky, which, trust me, if this was, people say, what would your last meal on earth be? This, probably. And langoustines, this. And just have it like this, in newspaper. I just think it's one of the most magical ingredients there is. And you just open this out, look at this, and you have hot arbroath smoky with butter like that, and you just pick off the flesh like this, and you just eat it. It is just absolutely delicious. One of the finest ingredients, I think, in the world. And now you know how to cook it 3 ways. There you have it. Haddock done. Yay! Right, if there's anything you'd like to learn about, a little mousecast, then do get in touch. We see if we can help out right here on the show. Time now for a quick break, but join me again in a couple of minutes where Mr. Daniel Galmiche will be here with some amazing recipes, this time for fish. I'll see you in a bit. Welcome back, sadly, to the last part of the show. But I'm back in the kitchen with all my guests, Daniel, Cyrus, Alicia, and of course, Suggs. Yay! So, reading through the plethora of things that you love as well in terms of food, classic French cooking.
Yes.
Coq au vin.
I like a stew. The only thing I've actually ever made in my life is a pheasant stew, but coq au vin is one of the things I love most.
Well, that's what we're going to do.
Having spent a bit of time in France. And partly because you're a hero, I see his name up there.
Exactly, and partly because I've got a multi-Michelin star French chef, so and I might as well get him to do it. Why have a dog and bark yourself? Or Le Champ.
Yes.
There you go. Right, so we're just going to take our chicken. I'm going to get to a stage where I'm going to show you this bit. So the chicken has been marinated in wine overnight, and I'm going to basically get to that stage. So I like to dust it with the flour, but you can do this several different ways. You can seal it, then add the flour.
Yes, correct. You can do both.
Use this
flour first.
So there's a little bit of flour over there, plenty of butter. You're going to seal that in there as well. The chicken is formed as this. You need to break the chicken down. It's very straightforward. What you do is you take a knife, you cut it through here, through that bit, and that's the legs and the thighs off. Then you find the little knuckle, that's that bit off. And then cut that bit through there, all the way through. This is French style of cutting it up rather than trimming it up fancily. We just get to that. And then all you do is you take this bit of the carcass off of here, cut this through, and then we're going to cut this into 4 pieces, like that. So take this off, use this for stocks and sauces and bits and pieces.
So are there different derivations in the different provinces of France?
Well, it's just some household. Some household will put the flour after the chicken is roasted, and some of them will put flour before you roast them.
But traditionally, it doesn't have to be...
Traditionally, it's made with a rooster.
Rooster. But it doesn't have to be red wine, does it? It could be red or white.
Well, in a Jura, it's white. That's correct.
What?
Yeah,
it could be red or white wine?
Yeah, in a Jura, when they déglace, because it's a speciality of the Jura, the poulet au vin jaune, which they use the wine from the Jura, but they use the white wine from the Jura instead.
So that all gets put into there, and then all we do is we get a nice bottle of red wine, because we're going to use this for the sauce as well.
I'm not going to use your stuff, then?
No, that's going to go in there.
Very serious. Very serious.
That's going to go in there, and we pour the red wine over the top like that. That's going to sit over there, and we just leave that to marinate overnight. And that's what we have in this pan over there, which we're going to seal off. Now, while we're doing that, gets left in the fridge overnight. And then I'm going to wash my hands because I'm going to pick something up very, very special for those people just waking up. 40 years this gentleman has been at the top of his game in the band.
I've seen
it's taken 7 years. You've actually seen this chap.
77, 78, when I used to watch people on the ground playing, including Elvis Costello and all these people.
This was where? In central London?
When I was in Lower Slough Street, in a garage.
One of the few places that liked us, to France.
He told me, you went in the 70s, you went to see him.
Yeah, 77, 78.
Well, amazing, isn't it, for a 45-year-old man to remember back then?
You're very kind. I'm glad, despite my grey hair.
So this currently is your 13th album, this one. And how special it is. We listened to it a little bit earlier.
Thank you very much, James.
This must be... you must be chuffed to bits with this.
I am. I think it's the best stuff we've ever done. Of course you do. Everything new you do is the best, but you've been very kind and you're embarrassing me slightly now.
What's the story with the Helen Mirren thing? Where does that come in? Because that's something to do with the album. Where does that come in?
Oh, God, yeah. So, yeah, I've got an house in Italy, all right? Face up, yeah. Like all the teachers, 2 Bob North Londoners. I've got a place in the Mediterranean. And I just discovered that down the road from my house, which is in Puglia in southern Italy, was Helen Mirren. And through a friend of a friend, I got to know her. And it was quite funny because it was when she was doing the film The Queen. And I was sitting on the beach and I knew she was coming round to meet us. And I said to my mates, look, just don't freak out. The Queen's coming round the corner. And just then Helen Mirren came round and 2 of my mates literally fell off their deck chairs.
And she was... Yeah.
No, she's a lovely person, and I asked her just to read out some of the lyrics of our new album for a sort of promo. And you never know, but she's always up for it and funny, and hilarious. Yeah.
That's legend. So, like yourself, look. We're going
some lardon, I can see, yeah.
Really,
that can go straight in, Chef.
Very good colour.
Straight in, get it in.
All in.
Yeah, get it in, no messing around.
Very good colour.
So that all goes in. The great thing about this, you can fry the lardons if you want, but this is going to go in there. I'll bring this all over. But your lardons go in. Now, you can do this a variety of different ways. I've got the little bucagani, which is basically just parsley stalks, bay leaf, some fresh thyme. That's going to sit in there. And then I like to put the mushrooms straight in. You use small white mushrooms in France?
Yeah.
So I just...
Small one. He looks a little bit...
Yeah, he starts to twitch when I did that. He wanted to chop them all up.
I did. It's true. I did. Because I saw the size compared to the one we use. I said...
You think this is bad? I was going to get Cyrus to do this bit with me and just leave you sat there.
Go and get some from the garden.
That would have really, really winding you up, wouldn't it? It's like it'd have been proper twitching. So what you do then is you cover it over. If you want to cover it over, you put it in the oven. I like to cook it in the oven or...
Oven.
Oven's
yeah,
best.
absolutely.
So oven for an hour and probably an hour and 15 minutes, something like that. And what you end up with is your classic, what I class as brasserie coq au vin.
Absolutely.
Coq au vin that's not been messed around by chefs and deconstructed and put back together and all manner of different sort of stuff like that.
It shouldn't.
Sorry?
Why would you deconstruct a coq au vin?
Trust me, chefs...
A lot of people do it.
Chefs do it, don't they? They deconstruct it and mess around with it like that as well. But as well as the album, we've got to touch on the tour because, you love playing live anyway, and there's no better band, I think, than live anyway. But you...
James, I love you. Thank you for remembering why I'm on this programme. Apart from eating coq au vin.
That's why I've been doing this for about 30 years.
I know you have.
But tell us about
what was good is my promotional person over there said, you're going on tour in March. I said, no, that's America, mate. No. No, we're actually going on tour in June. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
And we're starting in Southampton, just down the road, and I don't know Portsmouth and all that. So we're on tour for about 2 or 3 months, doing festivals, race courses and all sorts. And it's tremendous that people still want to come and see this old shower,
Well, it's great because...
Are you doing a Newbury races as well?
Yeah.
No, because I'm there. That's why I'm asking.
Are you there? Well, exactly. Look, we're just going to...
They'll tell you which ones we're at.
Are we at Newbury?
Newbury. Are we at Newbury?
You're all over the UK.
Yeah,
but... What race? Oh, well, okay. Are you at Newbury races? He said I'm all over the UK.
Yeah, we won't see him again.
Okay.
Right, do you want to season that, Chef?
Oh, yes.
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 Season it with salt and pepper. So you like to...
Put some in here.
You could do this with mashed. I do this with mashed potato bits. You do
So
this.
how long? Only an hour and a half. That hasn't been overnight or
No, no. It's been overnight in the wine and everything. But,
Yeah.
And then you got proper mashed potato.
Yeah, we need a touch of seasoning in here.
Touch of salt and pepper in there. There you go. I'll let you chefy season it up. Go on then. But I actually think
sometimes this is too salty. Sometimes I've had coq au vin.
blame the chef.
Yes, because the pancetta, you call that.
The pancetta, they've added too
poitrine
much salt
fumée is too
after.
salty.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason. And he still seasoned the chicken as well.
Check it, it's Suggs. Check it, it's Suggs. Take another taste. I don't want it. Don't want it too salty.
Couldn't cook with
I
something.
don't
Don't know what he's on about.
Yeah, it's enough.
It's happy with that?
Yeah,
There
it's
you
good.
go. And then we just lift this off.
Yeah.
And I actually think when people do this and deconstruct it, they try and get the sauce too thick.
It shouldn't be.
I think you just got to you have it
Because
nice.
when it's so reduced, it's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to have it nice and simple like that.
Oh,
Happy with that?
Yes.
And there we have it.
it's a hefty portion.
A classic,
Yeah, but that's
classic
perfect.
portion.
Voilà, that's
Classic,
a proper
classic.
brasserie dish.
brasserie coq au vin.
That's it.
Easy as that. Cooked by a Frenchman and me.
What can you say?
Done. There you go. Right, bon appetit. You get to dive into
mate.
that one, that one.
crikey.
Cyrus, I'm going to portion you another one over here.
I know, we got the whole lot.
There we go. So we're going to put we'll put another bit in there, and we'll get another bit for Cyrus over here. So get a little bit of that, but dive into that.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm getting up for this one.
Classic,
Good.
classic, 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 classic.
Oh my God, that is
Classic. Thank
Happy
you.
with that?
Happy?
Big tasty.
just the right amount.
can it
As
not
you
be?
say,
Yeah.
not too thick and gluten, not too salty.
Yeah, because that's what I was saying. People forgot that we use the juice to mix with the marsh generally. That's why we don't reduce it too much.
The
And it
mash
doesn't
just
need
gets
to.
right involved. What are
Raspberry
you saying
grill.
about mustard then? No?
Do you serve it with mustard?
No.
No, you wouldn't. No.
Ah, no.
But
Doesn't need anything.
sometimes, depending the region, we serve it as well with tagliatelle. You know, the
That is.
That's delicious.
Love food like that. Proper
That's
French recipe.
delicious, mate.
That's it. Sadly, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you very much for watching.
Sensational.
Thank you to Gil down in Cornwall for that amazing cheese earlier. Alicia, of course, Cyrus, Daniel, and the brilliant Suggs. We'll see you back at the same time next Saturday when we got recipes from chefs Emily Scott, Romy Gill, barman Merlin Griffiths will be here, and I'll be joined in the house by writer and comedian David Baddiel. Until then, have a great weekend. Thanks for joining me at my place. I'll see you next time at my house. Bye for now.
An investigation for a double murder sends Detective Jeb Pyatt on a journey that tests his own faith. Andrew Garfield stars in Under the Banner of Heaven. Stream it now on ITVX. Next here on ITV1, live FA Cup action.